Hello people, this is Mark from Kharischangeworks, guys. I hope you are well. In continuation with this pain thing in relationship to grief or bereavement, loss, that kind of thing. In a previous video, I spoke about drug use and alcohol use. They are the two main directions that people will go in order to try and fill that void. So in the next video or so, I'm going to look at other things that might not be quite as common, and yet once I mention them, you'll go, yes, that's true. So today I want to talk about gambling. Why do people gamble? Because yet again, I want to refer back to the days when I was working with the homeless folks. In spite of having no money for whatever reason, so many of the people that I worked with, dare I say, became addicted to gambling. And they try to fill this financial loss, pain, with this striving of trying to get more money. Now, when it comes down to finances and a lack of finances, I know exactly what it feels like to have a bit. And I'm also incredibly familiar with having absolutely nothing. So here it is. Just consider with me the situation with me for a few minutes. You have a successful job, very good career, and everything goes well, and then all of a sudden you lose your job. The company that you work for goes into liquidation, or they've got to slim down their staff and everybody gets massive pay cuts, and some workforce has to be let go because of this. I want you to consider what happened back only 10, 12 years or so ago when we had that bit of a financial disaster round about the time when the Twin Towers came down. There was this massive loss of jobs globally. Now, I was working with the homeless at that point in time, and I was one of the fortunate ones at the time that had a very secure job, and it didn't affect me quite as much. However, the folks that I was working with, now they were on state benefits where the government gives you some amount of money, nowhere near enough, but you get a little bit. So what these folks would do is either drink or do drugs. But then there was this little pocket of people who were not quite into drugs. They might have tried it in the past and it wasn't for them. They might have tried some alcohol in the past, and that might also not be for them. Now, my general understanding is quite a number of people enjoy a drink of alcohol every so often. And this gambling pocket, there were some that enjoyed a drink from time to time. But their main vice wasn't alcohol. Their main vice was this striving for finances. Now, I recall two groups of people. Two people, shall I say. One was an incredibly successful attorney. He was earning mega money. I'm talking thousands a month, thousands. And as soon as his business went down because of him drinking too much beer too regularly and started to make serious mistakes as far as the law was concerned, he lost his license and couldn't practice anymore. He turned to gambling, which was quite an interesting one. And when I spoke to him about it, he says he had such a high standard of living that the fact that he's now homeless, he couldn't cope with the pressure of having a single room with hardly anything in it when he was used and familiar with living in a mansion with expensive cars, expensive art, and all top of the range technology at the time. And he couldn't deal with the pressure of not having that position in society anymore. And the only way forward for him was to gamble on horses, gamble on the slot machines, gamble on this, that, and the other in the hopes that he would get some money back. He was chasing a ghost, in other words. And I said to him many times, whatever his name is, I'm not going to tell you, that it wasn't the fact that he lost his business because of poor practice. He lost his business because of the amount of alcohol that led to poor practice. And I said to him, the minute you pack in drinking as much as you do, retake the bar and you might get your license back, and then you can slowly work your way out of this dungeon that you've dug in for yourself. Long story short is, he's now dead. And as far as I understand, he didn't pack in the drinking. And as I understand it, it is the drinking that also took his life. A very sad, sad story indeed. And all he wanted to do was fill the pain of homelessness and lack of financial stability by chasing a ghost. That's all he wanted, to deal with the pain of financial loss. I think of someone else. Prolific drug user. Incredible drug user. This guy used more drugs than any person I've ever seen in my life. Prolific. He too became a gambler. And this time it was to fund his drug use. Because for him, theft wasn't enough. So he had to thief in order to sell, to take the money, to gamble, in order to get more money, in order to buy more drugs, in order to deal with the pain of losing his parents when he was a kid and was adopted and went through a system where he got abused horrifically. So here you've got two examples. One chasing the ghost of financial and position, the status thing. And the other one was chasing acceptance and love and care. Totally two different motivators, totally different. Yet they chose the same medication to ease the pain. Sad stories, really sad stories. And what I want to bring to your attention here is simply this. It doesn't matter whether you are male or female, whether you're old or young, fat or thin. It matters not. What matters is, where is your vulnerability? And for those two folks, one had a drug and a gambling vulnerability, albeit the gambling came a bit later. He wasn't aware that he had a vulnerability for gambling, but once it bit him big time. I don't know if this young man is alive. At the time, he was only around about 22, 23. But there you go. That was also about 15, 16 years or so ago. That's what I'm talking about. The other guy was a lot older. He was about 50s, about 20 years ago. So, like I said, that chap is sadly passed away. So what am I saying here? So when we experience this loss, and it doesn't matter what kind of loss it is, the fact that you experience loss means that you have to deal with it in some way. Now, this is the word of warning in many ways. Don't just do anything, because you might not know that you've got a vulnerability for your medication. And whilst it works in the moment, and you get this relief, this respite from the pressure of dealing with the loss because of the medication that you choose to use, alcohol, drugs, gambling, and I'm going to talk about a couple of others in the next video or so, you most probably going to end up with a greater problem. Not the one that you've already tried to deal with, the loss and the grief. That's one issue. But the means by which you are trying to resolve the pressure might become a secondary problem that also then has the potential to lead to a tertiary one. So we have to choose very carefully how we go about dealing with this thing called pain and how we deal with this thing called grief or loss. At the end of the day, my hope is that you would deal with this thing in a wise way and not just go the status quo manner where it is so easily justified. In the words of alcoholics, it's only a social drink. Or in a drug users, I'm only dabbling. Or a gambler, I'm only dabbling. This dabbling social drink excuses, as I would like to say to it, is the slippery slope that leads to addiction, and then you've got 2, and then maybe 3, and then maybe 4, and the continuum carries on. So here we go. Be wise. Seek advice. I've said many times on this particular channel, find the people who have an invested interest in you. That family member that you trust. That friend that you trust. Lara made a fantastic video about encouragement. It is that kind of thing that we need. Go to that person that encourages you. That person that you encourage from time to time also. Go to them and seek advice. Go see your medical professional. They will often refer you to other agencies. But even there, be wise. So, gambling. This one is specific to do with status. And in that young man's case, acceptance. Yes, it works for a day, for a week. And then this thing just bubbles up. It's like a flat tire. You can pump it up as many times as you like. It is always going to go flat again. You need to replace the tire or see if it can be plugged and repair it properly. That's it for today. Gambling. Bad choices. If you can control it, just like alcohol, just like drugs, if you can, great. My experience says that is an incredibly difficult objective to achieve. In the early days, yes, but later on, not so much, because then it becomes a lifestyle choice. And that is what I'm trying to suggest here, is we need to make these choices that aid our lifestyle in a constructive and positive way. Avoid the alcohol as much as you possibly can as a medication to deal with pain. Avoid narcotics, bad thing. Avoid gambling. Tomorrow or so I'll be talking about a couple of other things. One that is very, very common but hardly spoken of, and the other one less so, but when it hits you, you know about it. So there you go. I hope you found this little video interesting and encouraging and thought-provoking. If it has, please do all the YouTube admin and slide those comments in the comments box. But for now, this is Mark from Kharischangeworks, and I'll speak to you soon.